He actually, in this book of Matthew, right before he says this, he talks about judgment. He says, "Judge not, that ye not be judged." And he goes into the line about, don't, if you see a splinter in your brother's eye, don't worry about that because you've got a log in your own. And you need to take care of yourself before you try to fix somebody else. He wasn't talking about judging others. He wasn't talking about the fact that these truths are just for a chosen few and were for special people and not for others. He was saying that you have to pay attention to what it is that you're talking about and who you're talking to. And are they receptive and able to hear you and able to listen? And right after he says this, he talks about judgment, then he uses that line. And then he immediately, the next verse is, "Ask and it shall be given to you. Seek and ye shall find. Knock and it will be opened unto you. For everyone that asketh will receive. And he that seeketh findeth, and to him that knocketh it shall be opened." I'm saying this is accessible to everyone. Everyone. But we have to ask. We have to seek it first. We have to be willing to listen. And so this line, "Give not that which is holy unto dogs, neither cast your pearls before swine, lest they trample them under their feet, and turn again and rend you." It had to be said to really make a point. Maybe somebody asked about, I was trying to tell my brother-in-law about you, Jesus, and he just wouldn't listen, or there was a lot more discussion in between these. And he was making a point. And he was also giving them a very strong visual picture. Pearls, of course, very, very precious. These were people that he was talking to mostly. Poor people who probably never held a pearl in their hand. And he was talking about just the image of casting pearls into where the swine are, trampling them in the mud, I'm sure people, oh my God, I would never do such a thing. But he was making the point. These teachings, the teachings of truth, the teachings that the masters bring us, the reality of what is going on behind the scenes in our consciousness, in the reality of God's presence, they are precious, precious truths, precious pearls. Pearl of great price is what he called it in another part of the Bible. And he told a little story about a merchant who found a pearl of great price and went and sold everything he had in order to obtain that pearl. Because that pearl represented truth, represents heaven, the kingdom of God. And, everything is within that pearl, everything that we're seeking. And he was also making 2 points. One is, everyone will find that truth eventually. Swami also talks about the fact that this is another reference to reincarnation. It's about, if you're worried about the saving people's souls and that you only have one chance to do this, why would you walk away? You would stay and try to convince somebody until you had your last breath, to convince them that this was the way, this was the truth. But if you have all the time in eternity, walk away. Don't worry about it. God will take care of them. Eventually, they will understand. Eventually, they'll come to that truth and understand and come to God. That's our destiny for every single one of us. And it will take as long as it takes. And the other thing that is sort of hidden within this lesson is free will. We have free will to choose. There's a line from the autobiography of a yogi about Yogananda. He wrote this book about his time with his guru and his searching for truth. If you haven't read it, you should pick it up. And he talks about Yukteswar, who is his guru. This is Yukteswar here, and that's Yogananda there. And he was describing his guru as being very simple, being very humble. He wasn't a show-off. He didn't talk about his powers, and he didn't talk about his state of realization. He says, Others talked of miracles but could not manifest anything. Sri Yukteswar seldom mentioned the subtle laws, but secretly operated them at will. A man of realization does not perform any miracle until he receives an inward sanction, Master explained. God does not wish the secrets of his creation revealed promiscuously. Also, every individual in the world has inalienable right to his free will. A saint will not encroach upon that independence, which is both thrilling and wonderful and marvelous and absolutely maddening, because that means it's up to us. It's up to us. God waits. Masters will just wait. They have all the time in eternity. If we're not ready, if we're not willing, if we're not open, if we're not asking, if we're not seeking, if we're not knocking, they'll just wait for us. Love us, guide us. They're just there waiting. God will wait. And it's up to us to say, I'm ready now, I'm ready, please, help. So everybody, in a sense, determines what it is that you'll receive. And what are we ready for? What is it that we're willing to hear? Sometimes even when we ask the Master, we finally say, I'm ready, I'm willing, I want to do this. Even then, it's a step-by-step process. We open our hearts just a little bit at a time. And even in the autobiography of a yogi, Yogananda talks about coming to his master and being absolutely thrilled. This is his whole life's quest to find his guru. And he finally finds his guru, and he bows at his feet, and he hugs him, and he says, you're my teacher, you're my guru, you'll take me to God. And the very first thing Master asks him to do, he says no. Yogananda says, no, I won't. So we just, we take steps forward, and then we sort of take steps back. We take steps forward, and the Guru says, okay. In Dorothy, in The Wizard of Oz, you're familiar with that story. I think about this. She goes through all these adventures. She goes to the land of Oz, and she's away from home, and she talks all throughout the story about how she wants to go home. I want to go home, I want to go home. She gets caught up in all these adventures and has friends and helps people and does all these amazing things, and she finally gets to the end of her journey, and the good witch, the good fairy, tells her, oh, all you have to do is tap your heels together 3 times and say, there's no place like home. There's no place like home. There's no place like home. It was simple. She had the power to do it all along. But she wasn't ready for that yet. She also is very interesting in the book. If you read the book version, not the movie version. At the beginning, the good fairy puts a kiss right here in the middle of her forehead. That is her protection all the way through her adventures. Dr. Lewis, who was a disciple of Yogananda, I think this is Swami telling the story, he kept asking Master for God realization, for samadhi, for that unity of God. I want it. And he knew Master had the power to give it to him. And he kept bugging him until Master finally turned to him and said, can you take it? And then Dr. Lewis back down and said, oh, maybe not. Maybe I'm not ready. Master knew it wasn't ready. But Dr. Lewis realized, well, maybe I'm not ready. He knew he had more work to do in order to take that. There's a new puppy in our community. Her name is Lily. She's a lovely little golden retriever puppy. And as all puppies are, it's been fascinating to watch her. When they come, they just are this bundle of energy. Just like little whirlwinds, and you just watch her walk around and just, this energy just flying. It's almost like you can see sparks flying off of her. This energy, all this energy, which is fascinating and fun to watch. absolutely no focus at all. No ability to focus. Just wiggly energy everywhere. And you don't take a puppy like that and say they're ready to do police work, or ready to lead a blind person across the street, They're not ready for that yet. You have to work with all that energy and focus that energy. She's now going to puppy classes. And she's learning to focus her energy, and step by step, she's now, it's been a few weeks, and you can see her energy is getting more focused. She has more ability to actually be still, be calm for a couple minutes at a time. And she's learning basic things, and she can gradually get there. But it would be inappropriate to try to give her more than that to do. She has to learn to focus her energy first. This idea of sharing teachings, when we find something we love, Swami Kriyananda said, the nature of God is joy. And the nature of joy is to want to share itself. This is the explanation he gives when people say, well, why did even God, why? Just why? Why did all this happen? Why am I here? Why did this all begin? And we're all just part of that oneness. Why are we here? This is the nature of joy, to expand and to share itself. So when we find the path, when we find teachings, when we start opening our heart and we feel that joy, and we feel that amazing experience of that reality beyond what is immediately obvious, we want to share that with people. It's normal. It's part of joy to want to do that. And this teaching, this reading is about how we do that. I have three experiences when I read this, three experiences that stand out in my mind. When I was early on the path, I tried to have a conversation with my mother-in-law about this. She's a wonderful woman, and I love her. She's a deep, deep devotee of Christ. Christianity is her path. And for some reason, I thought I could talk to her about this. And I look back on that and I just cringe. Because it just failed in every way possible. And the only reason it didn't absolutely destroy our relationship is because she's a wonderful woman. And then I think about, because I just didn't have, my heart was so open and but I had no words, to put it to words, to try to explain to somebody. I just didn't have the ability to do that. And then there's another woman who comes to mind who I worked with at Home Depot, which is where I spend a lot of my days. And she's no longer there. But she's a lovely woman. And at some point, I guess, in our work together, I told her I lived in a spiritual community. I don't remember how that came up. She asked me where I lived, and then she was interested. I really? Oh, wow, tell me more about it. What's called Nanda? And I think she asked me about maybe where I went to church or something. But it was a pretty simple conversation. Well, I think she went home and she Googled it, and she started looking it up. And she came back one day and said, wow, that's really cool. Well, she went into Ananda far enough online where she found some of my old blogs and looked me up and saw that I was a minister. So she comes to work and says, wow, Lorna, that's really cool. We're standing in the middle of the lumber aisle. Lumber all around. We're going to get the reach equipment, the big machine that I have to drive. And she's got her flags in her hand that they use to spot. So she turns around to me in the middle of the lumber aisle and says, so like you're a minister at Ananda? And what is that like? And that's really cool. I read this article on this. I said, Teresa, not here. We're not doing this now. This is not where we're going to talk about this. And she wouldn't give up. But it's so cool. It's really neat. No, we're not talking about it here. Read no, I'm not going there. Okay, so then she went on. Eventually she called me, she left. She left Home Depot and then she wound up calling me a couple times. I think perhaps she was a little drunk at the time. She called me and wanted to talk about these things. And I talked to her on the phone. This was, it was a private conversation. And she obviously wanted to know. She had an interest and she wanted to hear. And these are things that she thought about. She wasn't really interested. She never asked me once to come. She had never asked me, what to read or how to explore this any further. She a lot of it wanted to just tell me her theories about the universe and how she thought everything worked, which was fine. So we had a private conversation, and we talked about that a little bit. But again, I knew there was only so far I could go. There was only, I could answer her questions and listen to her, but there was only so far. I didn't try to reel her in and say, oh, you should come. She'd come to the temple. Maybe someday she'll show up here, but maybe not. She wasn't ready to go beyond that point. And it wasn't appropriate to talk about it in the lumber hike. And then I have another friend, a wonderful friend who I went to high school and to college with. And we went to nursing school together, and I found the path right after we graduated in 1980. And I don't remember how exactly it happened, that I talked to her about it, or she found out about it or something. But she called me up one day, and she said, we've got to meet for lunch. I really need to see you. We need to talk. So we went and met her at a restaurant, and we sat down, and she said, okay, tell me what's going on. she said, either you've gone off the deep end, and I need to give you help, or you found something that I want. And so we had a conversation, and I found her about Ananda, and I told her what I found. She's now a Kriyavan, and she lives down in Palo Alto community. She was ready. She was ready to hear. She had her heart open. She wanted to know what was going on, and she was ready. And Master used me as a channel, and that was perfectly appropriate. In Ananda and in the Education for Life and the Living Wisdom School, we talk a lot about directional energy. Which way is the energy moving? Are we moving in the right direction? So it's not like a job description or requirements that we can check off a list and say, I need this requirement, I need this requirement, or that we have to demand of somebody else before we have a conversation with them. But we can feel in our heart and know where is the energy moving here? Which direction are we going? Is the direction going in the right way? Is the direction going towards expansion and towards greater awareness and towards open-heartedness and loving and acceptance and willingness? In the Bhagavad Gita, reading, it says, never speak these truths to one who is without self-control or devotion, who renders no service, who does not care to hear, or who speaks ill of me. These are good guidelines, but it's all directional. In the autobiography of the yogi, he talks about Lahiri Mahashaya, who is this one, and his experience with Babaji. And Babaji telling Lahiri that it was time to take duties of Kriya Yoga, the technique of Kriya Yoga, back out into the world after it being sort of buried during the Dark Ages, during the dark times of Kali Yuga. And now it was time, with the rising of consciousness on the planet, it was time for Kriya to come back out into the light and to be shared with people. But at first, Babaji tells them, I want you to take these teachings to those people who are willing to renounce the world, who are ready to walk away from the world and give up all their worldly goods and to live as renunciates, and you can teach them the technique of Kriya Yoga. And Lahiri said, maybe those people who are actually needing it the most are those people who are not quite ready to give up the entire world yet, who aren't ready to be total renunciates, but their hearts are sincere and they're longing for this, and they would greatly benefit by these teachings of Kriya, to take them closer to God, to move them into the right direction. And Babaji said, okay, through you, God has spoken, and you can take these teachings to anybody who is sincere and who wants to learn. So it's all directional. And we may not feel that we're right there yet, but if we're moving in that direction and we're sincere, then we just need to keep taking those steps closer and closer and closer. Again, Yogananda talks about he says, the ocean of truth fruitlessly attempts to flood through narrow openings, people who keep themselves narrow and small. That ocean of truth is there, wanting to flood us with divine blessings, flood us with that wisdom and with that truth. But if we keep ourselves small and narrow, only a little bit can get in. There are others who keep digging, widening, and deepening the channels of their lives by self-discipline and culture, inviting bigger and bigger volumes of God wisdom to pass through them. That's what we want to do. We want bigger and bigger volumes. We want more and more of that truth, more and more of that light. And so we need to keep opening. We need to keep widening the channel, making our cup bigger to hold that ocean of wisdom that God's trying to give us. And again, we come back to how do we do that? We come back to these guidelines. Those who have self-control, devotion, who render service, who want to hear, who don't speak ill of me, those are guidelines that can help us. What do I need to do to open more, get wider, enlarge my cup to hold more? For most of it, it's about self-control and concentration, which is why Swami put that affirmation in with this reading today. Concentration. Most of us are very willing to hear. Our hearts are open. We come to the Gurus, we come to purification and said, I seek purification by the grace of God. We recognize where it comes from and what we need to do. We just need to learn, like the puppy. We need to learn to focus a little better, concentrate a little bit better. There's a wonderful story in the autobiography, again, about Babaji. This time it was Yukteswar telling the story. Because Master asked him, have you ever met Babaji? And he said, actually, yes, I have. There were a couple times I met Babaji. And the first one was at a big religious festival that they have in India. And I won't go into great detail about that, but he met Babaji, and Babaji told him to write a book about the underlying truths of Eastern and Western religions. And he said, when you finish the book, I'll come back, and I'll see you when you finish the book. So when he finished the book, Babaji appears to him again, and he sees him sitting under a tree with his followers. And Yukteswar gets really excited. You're here again. This time he recognizes him. Babaji, you said you'd come back. He said, yes, I came back. Congratulations on finishing the book. And Yukteswar gets kind of agitated about this in a good way. You're here. Stay here. I'll go get you sweetmeats. Can I bring you something? You know? And would you like to come to my home? And Babaji said, no, we prefer the company of trees. We're fine right here. So he said, okay, stay here. I'll be back. So he runs home and he's going to fix treats, and things to bring back the food. He comes back and Babaji's gone. And he's hurt. And he's puzzled. And he gets a little mad. Why'd they go? So a while later, he comes to his gurus. Lahiri is his guru. So Yukteswar is at Lahiri's, the ashram. He comes in and Lahiri says, oh, did you see Babaji by the door when you came in? He said, no. Where? Where's Babaji? And he turns around, and I love the way he describes this. He says, I beheld near the door the form of Babaji, blooming like a perfect lotus, sitting there by the door. And then he says, I remembered my old hurt and didn't bow. And Lahiri, Mahashaya, looked at me in astonishment. What are you doing? And Babaji says, he says, the divine guru gazed at me with fathomless eyes. You're annoyed with me. Well, why shouldn't I be? I answered. Out of the air you came with your magic group, and into the thin air you vanished again. And Babaji said, I told you I would see you. It didn't say how long I would stay. Babaji laughed softly. That's one thing I love to meditate on. Babaji laughed softly. What would that sound like? Babaji laughing softly. He says, you were full of excitement. I assure you that I was fairly extinguished in the ether by the gust of your restlessness. Here's another little hyperbole like Jesus, extinguish, can you imagine, I extinguished Babaji. I was so restless, where's Babaji? I extinguished him. I extinguished him. And then Yukteswar says, I was instantly satisfied by this unflattering explanation. And I knelt at his feet, and the Supreme Guru patted me kindly on the shoulder and said, child, you must meditate more. Your gaze is not yet faultless. You couldn't see me hiding behind the sunlight. And with those words, in the voice of a celestial flute, he said, Babaji disappeared. This is a wonderful story and reminder. And then they're talking about the masters. And they play the roles and they assume this, being human and being just like us. And it's a lovely, fun story. And he's telling you, Yukteswar, to meditate more. That we need to, that concentration, that ability to focus and be still, really still, is what it is the main, as he said, it's the main thing that helps us in every part of life. It's also the biggest obstacle that we have between us and God. Because there's just, everything is vibration. And when we set up this vibration of restlessness, we extinguish the opportunity we have to feel that stillness, because God is stillness. God is in that center. And when we are vibrating way too much to feel and to recognize and experience that stillness, then that's what separates us. But the good news is, it's very possible to learn. It just takes practice. It just takes working on it. And we gradually get there. We get little glimpses of it. We get times when we can get very still and very calm. And we feel that, and we have that experience, and we say, oh yeah, that's what it is. And then we come back to that, And just imagine Babaji patting you on the shoulder and saying, just meditate a little bit more. The last thing I wanted to say is this line about give not that which is holy unto the dogs. Holiness is important. It's important to remember these teachings, these truths, the presence of the masters, these gifts that we've been given. These are holy. They're sacred. They're rare on this planet, incredibly rare. And we have an amazing blessing to be able to tap into it, to be able to be here in this temple, to be able to know that Babaji is out there, to read these words of this scripture, to share in these rituals that we do together. There is such thing as holiness and sacredness. Here in this country, we have a little bit of problem with that. This is America. We're practical and we're down to earth. And, we wear Nikes and running shorts into, 5-star restaurants. And we approach life sort of on the same level all the time. And we want everybody to relate on the same level. And we have to remember that which draws us to the center of that star, those golden threads that take us into that light, that lead us into the truth, they're incredibly, incredibly blessed and special. And we need to remember that this is holy ground. The words that we read here are sacred words because they take us home. They express to us the reality of our own nature. And if we cheapen that or treat it in any way other than with awe, then we're missing something. It's just we're missing an opportunity to lift ourselves and open our hearts and to try to vibrate on a level with these masters, on that level of sacredness, that level of God awareness and sweetness and unconditional, unfathomable love for us and for everything. And just the more we try to do that, the more we put ourselves into that truth. I have lovely reading from the Spiritual Eternity for you. This is a prayer of devotion. I used to, when I first started reading some of these from Yogananda, the words were just, I thought that, flowery poetry, and really, I had a hard time relating to them. And now the more I try to listen to what he's saying, the more I love these beautiful words. This one is, I bring to thee the myrrh of devotion. With folded hands, bowed head, and heart laden with the myrrh of reverence, I come to thee. Thou art my parents, I am thy child. Thou art the master, I am ready to obey the silent command of thy voice. I conjured the fragrant devotion of all hearts and mixed it with my tears. Now I am eager to wash thy feet in silence. A river of my ardent crystal tears of craving rushes forth to meet thee. Wilt thou see that my boisterous flood of devotion be not lost in the desert of disappointment? Wilt thou see that my mad flood of devotion follow always the right course which leads to thee? Saranya has a beautiful